What does it take to make a dream come true? It's a question that both Mia and Sebastian were confronted with, and one they shared with the creative mind behind their story. La La Land, released by Lionsgate in 2016, was Damien Chazelle's second feature-length film, but its concept predated that of Whiplash. The odds were stacked against him, as Damien aimed to create a musical, a genre so far removed from today's cinema landscape that greenlighting an already risky proposition was made even more difficult when you consider he was brand new to the scene. So what did it take? But more importantly, how did this young director circumvent the inherent modern-day hurdles of a musical to craft a story worthy of the stars that inspired the dream? But before we continue, please take a moment to leave us a like. Every single click of that button helps us out immensely, so we appreciate your support. And subscribe if you haven't already to make sure you don't miss out on any of our future uploads. With all that said, let's get back to the show. The origins of this journey can be traced back to Damien's time studying filmmaking in Harvard's Department of Visual and Environmental Studies. He came from a musical background, having tried his hands as a jazz drummer at Princeton High School, which in part was the inspiration for Whiplash. It was in or around this crossroad when Damien discovered his love for musicals, and crucially, it coincided with him meeting his college roommate, Justin Horowitz. Justin shared a love for musicals, and the two would often collaborate in projects as they began to discuss the desire to create their own. And as you may already know, Justin Horowitz, now a composer, wrote the music for what would eventually become La La Land. By 2010, the script had been penned, the musical score was ready, all they needed now was, well, everything else. So off they went shopping around the concepts. And you can imagine how that went. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Damien would go on to say, "I was told that the material for La La Land seemed brazenly uncommercial. The movie is not based on anything, and there are no familiar songs to build off the pre-existing fanbase. And it's a jazz musical."
And it's dying. It's dying, man. It's dying on the vine. And the world says, let it die. It had its time. Well, not on my watch.
What are you gonna do?
But hope was not all lost, as a connection via a friend put him in touch with producers Fred Berger and Jordan Horowitz. This led to discussions with the production company Focus Features, and the concept began to take shape. The budget was to be around $1 million, but the studio wanted to make changes. As written by The Hollywood Reporter, Chazelle was told to change the male lead from a jazz pianist to a rock musician, change the complicated opening number, and drop the story's bittersweet ending. At the end of it all, Focus Features put the movie into turnaround. That is, when the studio declares the production costs they have accumulated as a loss in their tax returns, thus allowing the creative team to pursue their work through other avenues or studios. Damien Chazelle would go on to make Whiplash and garner critical acclaim. It didn't take long afterwards for La La Land to find a new home with Lionsgate, with an increased budget to boot. All he needed to do now was make it a success.
I'm gonna change the locks.
You can't afford it.
I'm a phoenix rising from the ashes.
Now, without getting too bogged down with details of every single contribution that led to the movie's quality, let me state that a movie production is a combination of multiple talents. La La Land would not have been a success without the work of their set design, the costume department, the lyricists, the dancers, and yes, the actors, to name a few. So let's instead focus on the larger picture of how a musical, in terms of concept and structure, was successfully woven to create a film that the wider audience fell in love with. So, what did Damien Chazelle do? Well, in an interview he did during the 2016 Telluride Film Festival, Damien was asked what his thought process was behind the movie's elaborate opening number. He replied, "It was basically, here's as big as the style's going to get. If you're going to do a musical, proclaim it right off the bat, so anyone who wants to get out of the theater has a chance to. Let them know what this world is capable of." And then the way we thought of it kind of symmetrically was that then it takes the whole movie to work our way back up to that world. So at the end, when they're on the studio soundstage, we bring back those same dancers, the same freeway motifs, and we bring back the same melody to have the movie be a full circle.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is great.
Okay, turn the keyboard on, lad.
So are you sold on the musical concept yet? It's interesting because as the movie proceeds along, the musical numbers become more comfortable. Again, speaking as an outsider to the genre. They instead feel like a logical extension of the emotional journey, and this was done by design. You see, as Damien once stated in an interview which I'll link down below, he characterizes a musical as you walking down a rainy street, and you're just so happy and you're so in love that you just have to start dancing in the rain. And when you link that essence with the stylistic choice of focusing all song and dance numbers, apart from the intro, to the experiences of Mia and Sebastian, and then going even further by really honing down the plot through the hyper-focused lens of their short yet intimate relationship, you begin to identify this movie beyond its surreal musical label and into a relatable experience. And this balance is something Chazelle had to circumvent throughout the entirety of the film. In various interviews, he often mentions the need to find a groundedness in the story. Yes, there are larger-than-life musical numbers, but also sobering conditions of reality. A detail I find very important, especially when attempting to sell the notion of a musical to a wider audience that has long forgotten its place in cinema history. The final piece of the puzzle then, in order to ground the movie as Damien sought out to do, was allowing for some form of mixed fortunes. He didn't want it to be purely a fantasy just as much as he didn't want it to end as a complete tragedy. So he chose to allow Sebastian and Mia to accomplish the goals they originally sought out to do. But that meant that their moment together, as Damien once stated, was a finite moment, akin to two boats passing by in the night. And this brief rendezvous was enough to change something within each character. It was the catalyst that ultimately directed them both to their dreams. But we can easily swap it around and picture a version of the pair staying together while sacrificing their original dreams to do so. And it's this bittersweet taste, that moment that Sebastian and Mia share at the very end of the film, that truly provides that final note, that tone that swells up to a crescendo, a musical journey of emotions that we find ourselves nodding in agreement. That, my friend, is life. At the beginning of this video, I posed a question. How did Damien Chazelle go about creating this modern-day fantasy? But perhaps we should have been asking, how does someone get you to fall in love with a musical? And I think on a personal level, I can begin to understand what was done to sweep me away and convince me that a musical, well, it could be damn good. Thank you for watching.
Jess?